They came from beyond the stars, beings of unimaginable power who reshaped our world into their playground. Cities crumbled, oceans boiled, and humanity was cast aside like ashes in the wind. But amidst the chaos, a spark remained, a resistance forged in desperation and fueled by defiance. This is their story, a tale of courage against cosmic horrors, of sacrifice when all seems lost, and of hope that refuses to die. Watch as these unlikely heroes rise to confront gods themselves, armed only with determination and stolen technology. Will they succeed? Or will Earth become nothing more than a memory? Hit subscribe now and join the fight for survival. The sky above the ruins of what was once New York City churned with unnatural colors. Violet clouds streaked with veins of molten gold writhed across the heavens. Below, the remnants of humanity scurried like ants through the skeletal remains of skyscrapers, seeking shelter from the ever-watchful eyes of the invaders. These were not mere conquerors. They called themselves the Eternarchs, beings whose very presence seemed to warp reality itself. They had descended upon Earth 3 years ago, unannounced and unstoppable, transforming continents into bizarre amalgamations of flesh and metal. Entire ecosystems had been rewritten overnight, oceans turned acidic, and gravity itself fluctuated unpredictably in certain regions. It was said that the Eternarchs did this not out of malice but boredom, an experiment conducted by gods who viewed mortals as little more than insects. Amidst this desolation stood Captain Mira Voss, leader of the Resistance's Alpha Squad. Her armor bore the scars of countless battles, its matte black surface etched with scratches and burn marks. She adjusted the visor over her left eye, scanning the horizon for signs of movement. Beside her crouched Lieutenant Elias Kane, a grizzled veteran whose face carried the weight of too many losses. His rifle hummed softly as he checked its charge levels, the weapon pieced together from scavenged parts and reverse-engineered alien tech. "We've got maybe 20 minutes before patrol sweeps through here," he muttered, voice low. Mira nodded, her mind racing. Their mission tonight was critical. Infiltrate the Spire, a towering monolith at the heart of the transformed Manhattan, and retrieve data believed to hold the key to defeating the Eternarchs. Failure was not an option. Behind them, the rest of the squad prepared silently. Dr. Lien Chan, the team's scientific expert, fiddled nervously with a small device strapped to her wrist, a prototype designed to interface with the Eternarch systems. Though brilliant, she lacked combat experience, something Mira hoped wouldn't get her killed. Then there was Rook, a mysterious operative whose past no one dared ask about, his body augmented with cybernetic enhancements that made him both terrifying and indispensable. Finally, there was Kale, a former priest turned rebel fighter, his faith shaken but not broken. Together, they represented humanity's last chance. As the group moved forward, weaving between twisted spires of alien architecture, Mira couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. The air felt heavier here, charged with an electric tension that prickled her skin. Every step brought new dangers, every shadow harbored potential threats. Yet despite the odds, she refused to give up. For buried deep within her chest was a fire that refused to be extinguished, a belief that even gods could fall if struck hard enough. The closer they drew to the spire, the stranger the environment became. Buildings seemed alive, pulsating faintly with inner lights that shifted hues like living organisms. Strange tendrils of organic material snaked along the ground, occasionally retracting or lashing out at random objects. Mira signaled for the team to halt as one such tendril whipped toward them, narrowly missing Lien's boot. "Careful," she whispered, her tone sharp. "These things react to motion." Elias knelt beside her, peering through the scope of his rifle. "I count 6 drones patrolling the perimeter," he reported. "They're smaller than usual, probably scouts." Mira cursed under her breath. Drones meant the Eternarchs were expecting trouble, which complicated matters significantly. Still, they had no choice but to press on. Adjusting her comlink, she addressed the group. "Rook, take point. Disable those drones quietly. Lien, keep your scanner active. I want real-time updates on any structural anomalies. Everyone else, stay sharp." Rook nodded, his movements fluid yet deliberate as he slipped into the shadows. Within moments, the first drone fell, its metallic body collapsing soundlessly to the ground. One by one, the others followed, each taken down with surgical precision. When the path was clear, Mira gestured for the team to advance. As they approached the base of the spire, the scale of the structure became overwhelming. It stretched impossibly high into the sky, its surface adorned with intricate patterns that glowed faintly in the dim light. Kale placed a hand against the wall, his expression unreadable. "It feels wrong," he murmured. "Like it's mocking us." Mira didn't disagree. There was something inherently unsettling about the spire, as though it were aware of their presence and simply biding its time. Shaking off the thought, she ordered Lien to begin interfacing with the entrance mechanism. The scientist hesitated, visibly nervous, before activating her wrist device. A series of clicks and whirs echoed through the air as the machine attempted to synchronize with the alien system. After several tense seconds, the door slid open with a hiss, revealing a corridor bathed in eerie green light. Inside, the walls pulsed rhythmically, mimicking the beat of a colossal heart. The floor beneath their feet felt soft, almost spongy, as if the entire interior were part of some massive organism. Mira led the way cautiously, her pulse hammering in her ears. They weren't alone. Shadows flickered at the edges of her vision, and distant whispers filled the air. Words spoken in a language she couldn't comprehend. Whatever awaited them deeper inside, she knew it wouldn't be easy. The corridor stretched endlessly before them, its walls throbbing with an almost hypnotic rhythm. Myra's boots sank slightly into the spongy floor with each step, a sensation that made her skin crawl. She glanced back at her team, their faces illuminated by the sickly green glow. Lien was muttering to herself, her fingers dancing over the holographic orb she carried, while Kale clutched his weapon tightly, his knuckles white. Rook moved like a ghost, his augmented limbs allowing him to glide silently through the oppressive atmosphere. Elias brought up the rear, his rifle trained on every shadow that dared to shift. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, coalescing into a chorus of voices that seemed to emanate from the very walls. Mira froze, her hand instinctively reaching for her plasma blade. "Stay close," she ordered, her voice cutting through the cacophony. The others tightened their formation, their breaths shallow as they pressed forward. The corridor began to narrow, forcing them into single file. The air thickened, making it harder to breathe, and the pulsing walls quickened their tempo, as if urging them toward some unseen destination. Then, without warning, the ground beneath them quivered. A guttural growl reverberated through the passageway, followed by the sound of something large and heavy dragging itself closer. Myra's visor flickered, attempting to process the incoming threat. "Elias, cover us!" she barked, unsheathing her blade. The veteran soldier responded immediately, dropping to one knee and aiming his rifle down the corridor. From the shadows emerged a creature unlike anything they had encountered before. Its body was a grotesque fusion of organic and mechanical parts. Tentacles tipped with razor-sharp claws lashed out blindly, while a cluster of glowing eyes scanned the group hungrily. Rook stepped forward, his cybernetic arm transforming into a serrated blade. "I'll distract it," he said calmly, charging ahead before anyone could protest. The creature let out a deafening screech as Rook engaged it, his movements precise and calculated. Sparks flew as his blade clashed with the creature's metallic appendages, but the fight was far from even. With a flick of its tail, the beast sent Rook crashing into the wall, his body crumpling momentarily. "Lien now!" Mira shouted, drawing the creature's attention. The scientist hesitated for a split second before activating her device. A high-pitched whine filled the air as the orb emitted a blinding pulse of energy, causing the creature to recoil in agony. Seizing the opportunity, Mira lunged forward, her plasma blade slicing through one of its tentacles. The beast thrashed wildly, its screams echoing through the corridor, but it was already weakening. With a final coordinated strike, the team brought it down, its massive form collapsing into a heap of twitching flesh and sparking wires. Panting heavily, Mira turned to check on Rook, who was already back on his feet, brushing off the attack as though it were nothing. "We can't afford delays like that again," she said sternly, though her tone softened when she saw the exhaustion etched on everyone's faces. They pressed onward, knowing full well that worse horrors likely awaited them deeper within the spire. As they ventured further, the environment shifted dramatically. The organic textures gave way to sleek, metallic surfaces adorned with intricate carvings that pulsed faintly with blue light. It was as though they had transitioned from the circulatory system of a living organism into the neural pathways of a machine. Mira couldn't shake the feeling that they were being guided, her instincts screaming that this place was alive. Not just metaphorically, but literally. Every step felt deliberate, as if the spire itself were orchestrating their journey. Their progress was interrupted by a sudden vibration beneath their feet, accompanied by a low hum that resonated through the air. Panels along the walls slid open, revealing rows of crystalline structures that emitted a soft, golden glow. Within each crystal floated humanoid figures, suspended in stasis. Mira approached cautiously, her visor scanning the nearest figure. To her shock, it bore a striking resemblance to a human, albeit one altered beyond recognition. Its limbs were elongated, its head bulbous, and its eyes wide and unblinking. Tubes connected the figure to the crystal, feeding it nutrients or perhaps something else entirely. "These are experiments," Lien whispered, her voice trembling. "They're trying to reshape us." Mira clenched her fists, anger bubbling beneath her surface. The Eternarchs weren't just invaders. They were architects, reshaping humanity into something unrecognizable. She turned to Kale, whose face was pale with horror. "Do you recognize any of them?" she asked gently. He shook his head, his jaw tight. "No, but I pray none of them are still conscious." Before they could decide whether to move on or investigate further, the hum intensified, and the crystals began to glow brighter. The figures inside stirred faintly, their movements sluggish but undeniable. Myra's heart raced. "We need to leave. Now." Her words came too late. One by one, the crystals shattered, releasing their occupants onto the floor. The transformed humans, or what remained of them, rose slowly, their blank stares locking onto the intruders. They didn't attack immediately, but their presence was suffocating, a silent promise of violence to come. "Fall back," Mira commanded, her voice cutting through the tension. The team retreated hastily, the newly awakened beings lumbering after them with unnatural speed. The chase was relentless, forcing them to navigate increasingly complex corridors as the creatures closed in. Just when it seemed they would be overwhelmed, Rook spotted a narrow opening in the wall, a maintenance shaft barely wide enough to squeeze through. Without hesitation, he shoved Lien inside, followed by Kale and Elias. Mira covered their escape, her plasma blade carving through the nearest pursuer before she dove into the shaft herself. The maintenance shaft led them to a dimly lit chamber filled with towering machinery that hummed softly, exuding waves of heat. The air here was dry and stale, a stark contrast to the damp, organic corridors they had left behind. Mira took a moment to assess their situation. Everyone was accounted for, though Lien looked shaken, her hands trembling as she adjusted her glasses. "What were those things?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Failures," Rook replied bluntly, his tone devoid of emotion. "The Eternarch's rejects. Whatever they're planning, it requires perfection." His words hung heavy in the air, a grim reminder of the stakes. Mira nodded, her mind racing. If the Eternarchs were experimenting on humans, then the data they sought might hold the key to understanding and undoing their plans. A faint buzzing noise drew their attention to the center of the chamber, where a massive console stood surrounded by floating holograms. The images depicted Earth, but not as they knew it. Continents were reshaped, oceans replaced with sprawling networks of alien constructs, and cities transformed into sprawling hives of organic metal hybrids. At the heart of the projection hovered a symbol, a spiral galaxy encircled by 3 orbs. Mira recognized it instantly. It was the insignia of the Eternarchs, a mark of their dominion. "This must be the control hub," Lien said, stepping forward cautiously. She extended her orb toward the console, which responded by projecting a stream of alien text. Her brow furrowed as she deciphered the symbols. It's a terraforming sequence. They're rewriting the planet's ecosystem on a molecular level. Her voice cracked with disbelief. If we don't stop this, there won't be anything left of Earth. Myra's resolve hardened. Then we shut it down. Lien, find a way to disable the sequence. Everyone else, keep watch. We're running out of time. As Lien worked frantically, the others fanned out, their weapons ready. The chamber was eerily quiet, save for the steady hum of the machines. Yet, deep down, they all knew the calm wouldn't last. Something was coming. Lien's fingers danced across the holographic interface. Her brow furrowed in concentration. The alien symbols flickered and shifted, rearranging themselves into patterns she struggled to interpret. It's adaptive, she muttered under her breath. The system is learning from my inputs. Mira glanced over her shoulder, her patience wearing thin. Can you shut it down or not? Lien hesitated, her voice tinged with frustration. I need more time. If I rush this, I could trigger a failsafe that locks us out completely. As if on cue, the hum of the machinery grew louder, reverberating through the chamber like a warning. The floating holograms began to distort, their images morphing into something darker, ominous red tendrils snaking across the projections, converging on the symbol of the Eternarchs. Myra's visor flashed a warning. Energy levels were spiking dangerously. We're running out of options, she said sharply. Elias, Kale, keep your eyes peeled. Something's coming. Her instincts proved correct. From the shadows emerged a new threat. Not drones, not failed experiments, but humanoid figures clad in sleek, black armor. Their faces were obscured by featureless masks, and their movements were unervingly synchronized. They carried weapons unlike anything the team had seen before, long, curved blades that shimmered with an otherworldly light. Mira tightened her grip on her plasma blade, her pulse quickening. Hostiles incoming. Form up. The armored figures advanced silently, their presence radiating menace. Rook moved to intercept them, his cybernetic arm transforming into a high-frequency blade. The first clash was explosive, sparks flying as metal met energy. Despite their superior numbers, the enemy fought with precision, their every move calculated. Elias fired controlled bursts from his rifle, each shot finding its mark. But the armored foes seemed unfazed, shrugging off injuries that would have incapacitated any human. Mira joined the fray, her blade cutting through the air with lethal grace. She ducked under a swipe from one of the attackers, countering with a strike that sent her opponent staggering. But for every foe they felled, another took its place. Lien! Mira shouted, desperation creeping into her voice. How much longer? Almost there. Lien replied, her hands trembling as she input the final sequence. The console emitted a sharp beep, and the holograms flickered violently before stabilizing. A message appeared in bold, glowing letters. Sequence interrupted. Initiating lockdown. Before anyone could celebrate, the chamber trembled as heavy blast doors began descending from the ceiling. Move, Mira ordered, grabbing Lien by the arm and pulling her toward the exit. The team sprinted, narrowly avoiding being crushed as the doors sealed shut behind them. They emerged into a wide, circular atrium bathed in crimson light. At its center stood a massive portal, a swirling vortex of energy that pulsed with an almost hypnotic rhythm. This isn't good, Elias muttered, raising his rifle. The armored figures regrouped at the edge of the atrium, forming a perimeter around the portal. Mira scanned the scene, her mind racing. Whatever lay beyond that portal, it was clear the Eternarchs intended to use it. We can't let them activate it, she said firmly. If we do, it's over. The portal loomed before them, its surface rippling like liquid mercury. Lightning like tendrils of energy snaked outward, striking the walls and leaving scorch marks in their wake. Myra's visor detected fluctuations in the surrounding atmosphere, suggesting the portal was unstable, but no less dangerous. That thing's a gateway, Lien said, her voice barely audible over the growing din. If they open it fully, They'll bring reinforcements or worse. Kale stepped forward, his weapon trained on the portal. Then we destroy it, he said grimly. Whatever it takes. Mira nodded, though the weight of the decision pressed heavily on her shoulders. Destroying the portal would require explosives, and they didn't have any. Their only hope lay in improvisation. Rook, she said, turning to the augmented operative. Can you rig something? Rook examined the nearest piece of machinery, his mechanical hand interfacing with its systems. After a moment, he nodded. I can overload the power core. It'll take out the portal and most of this facility, but we'll have maybe 2 minutes to get clear. Mira clenched her jaw. 2 minutes wasn't much, but it was all they had. Do it, she ordered. Everyone else, hold them off. The battle resumed with renewed ferocity. The armored figures surged forward, their blades gleaming with deadly intent. Elias fired methodically, conserving ammunition while targeting weak points in their armor. Kale fought with raw determination, his faith fueling his resolve as he wielded his weapon like a man possessed. Mira led the charge, her plasma blade carving through the enemy ranks with brutal efficiency. Yet, despite their efforts, the tide of foes showed no sign of abating. Behind them, Rook worked feverishly, rerouting power conduits and disabling safety protocols. Sparks flew as he forced the machinery to its limits. 30 seconds, he called out, his voice strained. The team redoubled their efforts, fighting with everything they had left. Mira risked a glance at the portal. It was widening, its edges crackling with increasing intensity. Figures began to emerge, their forms indistinct but undeniably hostile. We're out of time, Lien shouted, panic creeping into her voice. Mira made a split-second decision. Fall back. Now. The team retreated hastily, following Rook as he sprinted toward the maintenance shaft they had used earlier. Explosions rocked the atrium as the power core destabilized, sending shockwaves rippling through the facility. The portal collapsed in on itself with a deafening roar, consuming the armored figures in a blinding flash of light. The team barely escaped the collapsing spire, emerging into the nightmarish landscape outside. Smoke billowed from the ruins of the structure, its once imposing silhouette now reduced to smoldering wreckage. Mira leaned against a twisted spire of alien architecture, her chest heaving as she struggled to catch her breath. Her armor was scorched, her body battered, but she refused to give in to exhaustion. Around her, the others were similarly spent, their faces etched with relief and disbelief. We did it, Lien whispered, her voice trembling. We stopped them. But Mira shook her head, her expression grim. For now, she corrected. This was just one piece of the puzzle. The Eternarchs won't stop until they've remade Earth in their image. Kale knelt beside her, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Then we keep fighting, he said resolutely, no matter what it takes. As dawn broke over the shattered skyline, casting an eerie glow over the transformed city, the team prepared to move out. Their mission had been a success, but the war was far from over. Somewhere beyond the stars, the true architects of humanity's suffering watched and waited. And when they returned, the resistance would be ready. The aftermath of the spire's destruction left the team standing amidst a wasteland that seemed even more alien than before. The ground beneath their feet crackled faintly, as if still charged with residual energy from the portal's collapse. Mira surveyed the horizon, her visor scanning for any signs of movement. Smoke curled lazily into the sky, mingling with the unnatural hues of the churning clouds above. The air smelled acrid, burnt metal and something organic like charred flesh. It was a grim reminder of what they had just faced. We need to regroup, Elias said, breaking the silence. His voice carried a weariness that mirrored everyone's exhaustion. If the Eternarchs have other facilities like this one, he trailed off, letting the implication hang in the air. Mira nodded, her jaw tightening. They couldn't afford to rest. Not yet. We'll head back to base, she said, her tone firm despite the fatigue etched on her face. Lien, you'll analyze whatever data we salvaged. Kale, Rook, keep an eye out for patrols. We don't know how far their reach extends now. As they began their trek across the desolate landscape, Mira found herself replaying the events of the past hours in her mind. The armored figures, the portal, the sheer scale of the Eternarch's ambitions. It all pointed to something far greater than mere conquest. These beings weren't invaders. They were architects reshaping reality itself. And humanity? Humanity was nothing more than raw material in their grand design. Her thoughts were interrupted by Lien, who jogged up beside her, clutching the holographic orb tightly. "Captain," she said hesitantly, her voice tinged with both excitement and dread, "I think I've found something significant." Mira raised an eyebrow, motioning for her to continue. "While I was interfacing with the console, I picked up fragments of their communication protocols. There's a pattern, a signal being broadcast from somewhere deep within the planet's crust." She paused, swallowing hard. "It's not just Earth they're targeting. This is part of a larger network, a web connecting multiple worlds." Mira felt a chill run down her spine. "You're saying they've done this before?" Lien nodded grimly. "And they'll do it again unless we stop them." The revelation weighed heavily on the group as they pressed onward. Each step felt heavier, not just from physical exhaustion but from the burden of knowing the stakes had grown exponentially. The idea that Earth wasn't the first world to fall under the Eternarch's dominion, and wouldn't be the last, was almost too much to process. Yet it also clarified their purpose. They weren't fighting just for survival anymore. They were fighting for every species, every civilization that might stand in the Eternarch's path. By nightfall, they reached the edge of a vast crater, a scar left behind by one of the earliest attacks. Its walls shimmered faintly, coated in a layer of crystalline residue that reflected the dim light of the twin moons overhead. At its center lay the remnants of what had once been a thriving metropolis, now reduced to skeletal ruins wrapped in tendrils of alien growth. This was where the Resistance had established their hidden base, buried deep underground to avoid detection. Descending into the bunker was a surreal experience. The contrast between the desolation above and the bustling activity below was stark. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair damaged equipment, while medics tended to wounded soldiers. The hum of generators provided a steady backdrop to the controlled chaos. As Mira led her team through the corridors, heads turned, whispers spreading like wildfire. Word of their success at the spire had already reached the others, though few dared to hope it meant anything lasting. Commander Hale, the leader of the Resistance, greeted them in the war room, a cramped chamber lined with maps and holographic displays. His grizzled face bore the marks of countless battles, but his eyes burned with determination. "Report," he said simply, gesturing for them to sit. Mira recounted the mission in detail, leaving no stone unturned. When she mentioned the signal Lien had discovered, Hale leaned forward, his expression darkening. "A network," he murmured, rubbing his temples. "If true, then destroying the spire was only a temporary victory." Lien stepped forward, placing the holographic orb on the table. "I've isolated the frequency," she explained. "If we can trace its source, we might find a way to disrupt the entire system." Hale nodded slowly, weighing the risks. "Do it," he said finally, "but tread carefully. If they catch wind of what you're doing—" "They won't," Mira interjected firmly. "Not if we move fast enough." The next several days were a blur of activity. Lien worked around the clock, poring over the data recovered from the spire. Her makeshift lab became a sanctuary of sorts, cluttered with wires, screens, and half-empty coffee mugs. Meanwhile, Mira coordinated reconnaissance missions, sending small teams to scout areas identified as potential nodes in the Eternarch's network. The information was sparse, fragmented, but it painted a chilling picture. The invaders had embedded themselves deeply into Earth's infrastructure, their influence spreading like roots through soil. During one such briefing, Rook approached Mira, his usual stoic demeanor replaced by something resembling concern. "There's something you should see," he said quietly, leading her to a secure terminal. On the screen was a live feed from a drone deployed near the equator. What it showed defied explanation. A massive structure rising from the ocean floor, its surface covered in pulsating veins of light. Surrounding it were dozens of smaller constructs, each emitting a low-frequency pulse that resonated visibly in the water. "That's new," Mira muttered, her eyes narrowing. "How long has it been there?" Rook shrugged. "Unknown. But based on its size and energy signature, it's likely a major hub in their network." Mira clenched her fists. Another target to strike. But this time they'd need more than brute force. "We'll need a plan," she said, turning to leave. "And reinforcements." Her resolve hardened as she walked away. The resistance had always operated in shadows, striking quick and retreating before the Eternarchs could retaliate. But this would require something different, something bold. The plan came together in pieces, each fragment honed through endless debate and meticulous preparation. The underwater structure, dubbed the Leviathan by the team, was unlike anything they'd encountered before. Its defenses were formidable, its purpose unclear. To infiltrate it would require precision, stealth, and a touch of madness. Mira assembled a strike team composed of her most trusted operatives, including Elias, Kale, and Rook. Lien remained behind, tasked with monitoring their progress and coordinating support from the bunker. As they boarded the submersible, a cobbled-together vessel powered by scavenged alien tech, Mira addressed the group one final time. "This isn't just about taking out another facility," she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "This is about proving we can hit them where it hurts. That no matter how big they are, how powerful they seem, we can still fight back." Her words hung in the air, galvanizing the team. They descended into the depths, the pressure mounting with every passing second. The approach was harrowing. Schools of bioluminescent fish darted past the windows, their colors distorted by the Leviathan's radiance. Closer inspection revealed details that sent shivers down their spines. The structure resembled a colossal organism, its surface alive with writhing appendages and glowing orifices, pulsed rhythmically, as if breathing. "Looks like we're going inside a living nightmare," Elias quipped, attempting to lighten the mood. No one laughed. Breaching the Leviathan was a suicide mission masquerading as strategy. The submersible docked in a cavernous opening, its walls lined with fleshy membranes that retracted upon contact. The team disembarked cautiously, their weapons drawn. The interior was a labyrinth of tunnels and chambers, each bathed in sickly green light. Strange noises echoed through the passages. Groans, clicks, and faint whispers that seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. Their objective was clear: locate the central core and disable it. But finding it proved easier said than done. The Leviathan's layout shifted unpredictably, corridors rearranging themselves as if guided by some malevolent intelligence. "This place is alive," Kale muttered, his voice trembling. "It knows we're here." They pressed onward, encountering resistance in the form of biomechanical guardians, hybrids of machine and creature that moved with terrifying speed. Combat was chaotic, each skirmish pushing them closer to their limits. Yet, they persevered, driven by the knowledge that failure wasn't an option. Finally, after what felt like hours, they reached the core chamber, a cavernous space dominated by a towering monolith encased in a cocoon of pulsating tendrils. At its base sat a control panel, its interface glowing ominously. "Lien, talk me through this," Mira said, her voice strained. Over the comlink, Lien guided her through the sequence, her instructions rapid-fire but precise. The monolith began to destabilize, its tendrils flailing wildly as alarms blared throughout the structure. "Get out," Lien shouted. "Now!" The retreat was a blur of adrenaline-fueled chaos. The Leviathan convulsed violently, its walls collapsing inward as the team sprinted toward the exit. Explosions rocked the corridors, forcing them to navigate crumbling passageways and collapsing floors. Mira urged them forward, her voice cutting through the cacophony. "Keep moving. Don't look back." Reaching the submersible felt like a miracle. They piled inside just as the Leviathan imploded, the shockwave propelling them upward with terrifying speed. The ascent was disorienting, the craft rattling violently as debris rained down around them. When they finally breached the surface, gasping for air, The sight that greeted them was both awe-inspiring and horrifying. The Leviathans remained sinking into the abyss, its glow fading into darkness. Back at the bunker, celebrations were muted. The victory was significant, but the cost had been high. Supplies were dwindling, casualties mounting. Yet, amidst the gloom, a flicker of hope remained. For the first time, they had struck a blow that resonated beyond Earth's borders. A disruption in the Eternarch's network that rippled outward, weakening their grip. Weeks later, the resistance gathered in the war room, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of holographic displays. Lien stood at the forefront, presenting her findings. "The signal's origin has been traced," she announced, her voice steady despite the gravity of her words. "It's coming from Proxima Centauri, a star system less than 5 light-years away." Murmurs spread through the crowd, disbelief mingling with determination. Mira stepped forward, addressing the assembly. "This is our chance," she said, her voice unwavering. "If we can reach their homeworld, we can end this. Not just for us, for everyone." The room fell silent, the weight of her declaration settling over them. It was a gamble, a leap into the unknown. But it was also their only hope. Preparations began immediately. Ships were retrofitted, weapons upgraded, and plans refined. The journey would be perilous, fraught with dangers they couldn't anticipate. But as Mira looked around the room, at the weary faces of those who refused to give up, she felt a surge of pride. Humanity wasn't defined by its defeats. It was defined by its resilience. As the fleet launched into the void, bound for Proxima Centauri, Mira allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. The road ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They would fight, together, until the very end. The battle may be over, but the war for Earth's soul has just begun. If you believe in the resilience of the human spirit, hit that subscribe button and join us on this journey through the stars.